today I have very exciting news because I am about to interview the creative genius of NLP. And we are going to talk about his latest book, Thinking on Purpose, which is wonderful. And we are also going to talk about the connection between neurolinguistic programming and biohacking. Stay tuned because this will be a lifetime biohack. My name is Melina Vicario, La Biohacker, and today I am here with the creative genius of neurolinguistic programming. We are going to talk about his latest book, Thinking on Purpose, a 15-day plan to a smarter life. And we are also going to talk about the connection between neurolinguistic programming and biohacking. Dr. Bandler, thank you so much for being today here with us. And biohacking is the use of science, technology, a systemic thinking, and a proactive approach, also together with the quantified self, to become superhuman and upgrade ourselves. So
sounds like a plan.
Yes, and after reading your new book and learning neurolinguistic programming from you, my bet is that neurolinguistic programming, and especially this book, is the best biohacking for our brains. Actually, you begin this book with a quantifying process. So, what is the role of this quantifying process in the whole book and the whole process that we go through?
Well, when you say a quantifying process, all of neurolinguistic programming differs from traditional psychotherapy in that we're not trying to diagnose something. We're trying to teach people to learn at the neurological level. And I don't know exactly what biohackers do, but in essence, I'm trying to hack into the processes that naturally occur neurologically and make it so that people can learn. If you take a simple example, like that people go to therapy for years because they're tortured by a bad memory. We figured out that the brain naturally gets over traumatic experiences because when people look at these, they're either life-size or larger than life. And if you suddenly shrink them down to something about the size of a quarter and blink them black and white, it doesn't have any psychological meaning, but it makes it so that your brain doesn't go back to the same place over and over again. So people end up having trouble remembering what they were so upset about. And this is something that takes 10 or 20 minutes, not something that takes 5 or 10 years. And those kinds of neurological tricks and understanding the relationship between deep structure and surface structure from Noam Chomsky, which is where we started out. He was the first person to map neurology mathematically, to talk about what's natural language rather than grammar the way it's taught in school. That what the brain, as you learn language, automatically does to define which things have similar meanings and what gives greater focus in the brain to part of meaning as opposed to another. And we jumped off from his work to trying to understand the way in which people learn to get smarter. Because everybody has to get over things, have to get through things, and have to do things. And when I wrote the book, Get the Life You Wanted, I listed a lot of those, but I didn't really have a plan for people to sit down and go, I'm going to get smarter. I want to be more motivated easily. I want to be somebody that can change a belief so I don't get hung up on ideas, because we're into taking people into action in the world. Neurolinguistic programming is about recoding your brain, changing the way you think so that it'll change the way you feel so that you can do other things easily.
This is wonderful. And it is not a surprise that biohacking was created by computer scientists and mathematicians. And you're
computer scientists, mathematician. That must be a coincidence.
There's a coincidence related to the results we get, right? We measure and then we use this biohack and this biohack, and then we measure again and we have wonderful results. Like then we compare the beginning and the end, and yeah, we can be 100% sure that it worked.
Yeah, most psychological systems use statistics, and statistics tell you where patterns aren't. And the techniques that we use either work or they don't work. They don't work 30% of the time. And a lot of people try to do PhD theses, and they write me letters and they go, "Oh, I'm studying NLP. I want to do my PhD thesis." And I have a stock letter I send out to them. I go, "You're going to have trouble. We don't get statistical results. All the people with height phobias that come in leave without them." Right? You can't measure it. It either works or it doesn't work. And the way we treat height phobias is different than elevators, because we're not diagnosing a disease and shoving all the thought patterns into it. We're finding out what thought patterns people use to get over things. And we found that out by interviewing people who had done it naturally, who did it on their own. And it's like spelling in our country here, and in a lot of countries around the world, they give people phonetic spellers, which almost works in German. But it doesn't work at all in English. English is not a phonetic language. Good heavens, you can't even spell phonetics phonetically. And so we take, quote, learning disabled children, we give them a new program, and suddenly they can spell. And, I wrote an education book. Unfortunately, it's not taking off that much because the teachers are so, I think, oppressed by the governments and the way they do things, that I think teachers after a few years become very discouraged. And I just wanted to make their job easier, because like if you use the term biohack, if you take a kid who's thinking wrong and you give them a new way of thinking, you hack the natural neurology of the brain and have them do things the natural way. And if we use our brain the way it's designed as a machine, it's a miraculous machine and will do just about anything.
Thank you so much. This is so powerful. And actually, another connection that I found after reading your book is that we biohackers say that in order to become a biohacker and take control and be in the driver's seat of your own biology, you have to doubt many things that we've been taught as truths. We have to first doubt them. And
understanding is overrated.
Yes.
And understanding is really, if you think of the word itself, when you look at things, your sense of certainty when you don't know what to do should go up, and especially if you accept the things that people tell you. My career for 45 years, because the first time I used the metaphor about using that driving the bus, your brain, was in 1985. In the book, Using Your Brain for a Change. Remember, this book's number 32, and they're all about different things. That in 1985, describing the process of submodalities in human thinking, that is the size of images, the location, whether they have a border, of whether a voice is going in and out. There are something like 64 nonlinear variables in the various submodalities of the thinking of human beings. That there's pressure and location of feelings and the direction that feelings spin in your anthemic nervous system. That's not really the way psychologists talk. And because they come from a different background, I come from a background of harder science. And in math, 2 + 2 is always 2, is always 4. It doesn't happen 75% of the time, and on Wednesday, and you don't have to go back to the root. The only roots we're looking for are square roots. And it's the human brain, I believe, and I said a long time ago, mathematics is probably the most psychological science of all, because math only works for the human brain. It describes how we think and how we experience the universe itself.
This is exactly what we talk about. Like biologically, we have learned some things that now we're discovering they were not accurate, they were not truths. And now you're inviting us to challenge this previously taught belief that understanding a problem will magically make it disappear.
Yeah, that was tried for 100 years by the field of psychology. It's a great idea. It just didn't work. People fall in a river at the age of 5 and they're terrified to swim the rest of their life. They understand it, but it doesn't help them to swim any better. You still have to teach them to swim, kick their feet, and paddle their legs, or they're going to drown. That's all there is to it.
What other widely spread truths do you invite us to challenge in your new book?
Well, in my new book, pretty much all of them, right? If your beliefs aren't getting you where you want to go, there's nothing easier to change than beliefs. Remember, everything we once thought was true in science, we've pretty much found out is not true. The only thing that really remains the same is science fiction. Science fiction stays the same, but science evolves. Organisms that adapt, the faster they adapt, the more they function and the more they survive. The most adaptive tool that's ever been created is the human mind. And when you come up against things that are struggling and you're having trouble with, that just tells you you're doing it the wrong way. And you should go inside and change your belief about how things should be done. I see this a lot. I've been doing a lot of radio and they're asking me political questions. And to me, that people have turned politics almost into religions, whether they're liberal or conservative. And look, our populations are either getting smarter, freer, right, and more intelligent, or they're not. And we keep trying to spend more money on things to solve problems when we've tried that before. It's not how much money you spend on the problem. It's whether you come up with a better solution. There are better ways to educate our children. There are better ways to evolve our lives. There are better ways to deal with things. I train doctors and trying to teach doctors how to get out of their model. It's so rigid, take these pills right. And then they come back to me and they go, I gave him the antibiotics and he took 4 of them and felt better and stopped. And now the infection is worse. And I said, did you tell them to take them till they could see the bottom of the bottle empty? And he said, no, I told them to take the pills. Well, they took them. And then when they felt better, they stopped. You didn't tell them. He said, well, I told them to take them all. I said, not the same thing. You want to see an empty can. Got to have that goal of where you're going. And, not everybody is smart enough to know what a doctor knows about infections. And it may not matter to them. Once they feel better, they may stop. It's amazing how many people are allergic to things and eat them anyway. Now, that's just stupid. I'm sorry, but that's just stupid. And so we either have to find ways of changing the allergy or not. There's a lot of new miracles occurring in medicine with stem cells. And I talk to some of the doctors I know and they go, that stem cell stuff's a lot of crap. And they don't know. I'm sorry, that's like saying, Argentina is a horrible place when you've never been there. Or saying our southern borders don't need a fence when you've never been to the southern border. It's huge. We may never be able to build a fence big enough to keep people from wanting to come to a society that's richer and better. But what we really need to do is back up behind it and build an immigration program that really works. Right. And our Congress is busy arguing about whether that one idea is the right idea rather than thinking how great of an idea could we come up with. And, we pay these people a lot of money. They live in the lap of luxury in houses with fences around them. And yet, they don't make good decisions. I turn on the news every morning, and that's not just Democrats or Republicans. It's all of them. They're all not thinking of how we could come up with a good solution. And it's not just about biohacking your brain. It's about biohacking all of our brains. We've all got to help each other to get smarter. And if we don't do it, this is just a start. I'm sending a copy of this to everybody in Congress.
This is a great idea. And Dr. Bandler, you also challenge something that has been taught us as truth, that change is slow and has to be painful.
Well, we could make it that way. I can do that. I can slow it down and beat people with a 2x4. But I never believed that. When I started out, most people would go to therapy for 5 years and they would actually get worse if you really knew anybody who went through too much therapy. They began to sound like a fucking idiot. and they kept going, but I feel. And it's leaked into our society to the point where they don't want children to have a bad feeling going to school. And I'm sorry, that doesn't prepare them for life. Some things you're going to be good at and some things you're not. And if you're not good at things, I love this statement. Kid came into a house one day. I was sitting there with his mother, and he came in and looked at his mother and goes, "My teacher failed me," and held up a paper with an F on it. And I immediately responded and said, "Well, she should have done a better job. You should forgive her." Because the truth is, if the teacher had changed the way she taught, the child would not have gotten an F. But she didn't teach the kid how to think correctly to get the right answers. And it wasn't that the kid was sleeping, because once you realize you're doing something stupid, you can change it. If you don't realize you're doing something stupid, then you are stupid. And see, to me, this is the thing is we can always get smarter. So what I did is I tried things. I'd get all these things psychologists said would work. I tried them, and if they didn't work, I'd try something else and keep trying things till I found something. I'd go find people that got over the exact same problem and find out what they did. I know that sounds like a crazy thing to do, but success can repeat itself. And where there weren't solutions, I just started making stuff up because I knew the list that told me all the things they had tried. I'd get, all these papers from a psychiatrist showing me all the things they tried. Learning disabled kids, everything they had tried. I knew all those things wouldn't be work. So those were the things I didn't do. That's why I've created such a body of behavioral activity. The behavioral creations, the behavioral engineering techniques that I've created are all things that I got mostly from looking at how our neurology works. Because I figured whatever worked had to work the way our neurology worked. The difference between, constructing images and remembering images, and that how they interplay, that you construct images and then you remember them. And if you've constructed ones that you're remembering that make you feel bad, then you shrink those down and replace them with bigger ones. It's all very mechanical in nature, neuro-linguistic programming techniques and HR techniques. The techniques in this book, most of these things can be learned by everybody because you're actually doing all this stuff all the time.
This is so powerful to learn. When we learn how to do it, then we have the best biohacks for our brains. So which is your favorite biohack for brain power?
Well, it's the simplest thing is to me is because I get this all the time. I have people that tell me they have bad memories, but I'm always look at them and I go, "Do you remember that all the time?" And they always go, "Yes." And I go, "Look, when you want to remember things, you have to make them really big and really bright so that you can see them really clearly, whether it's a word or a person. And if you want to remember their name, you got to be able to make it so their name comes up with their face." I mean, improving memory is something I do all the time with people. And of course, conversely, when you want to forget things, then you make them small. You shrink them down. But you have to make these changes quickly or they don't stay in your mind. Oddly enough, the mind remembers what goes by fast. If you draw stick figures on a piece of paper and go like this, you see the little figure get up, run across and throw the ball in the thing. If I hand you one a week for 5 years, you'd have no idea what it did. So learning that people actually learn faster when they learn faster, and that they learn very little when you learn slow is part of what explains our educational systems and the fact that a lot of people have bad memories. And I get people who tell me they can't remember people's names. I bring them on the stage. I have everybody take their name tag off, and I go one by one and teach them to make a big picture of the person, right? And write their name underneath it. And to look at something distinctive about that person and then make a caricature of their face so that they can write the name. And then when they shrink it back down, right, and they look away and they look back and it pops back up. And I get them saying 10 and 20 people's names randomly back and forth in a matter of minutes. And you see, the fact they believe they can't remember names means they don't try. When you have big beliefs that say you can't do things, shrink them down. And when they tell you you can't heal fast, when they tell you this, and when experts, because an expert, X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure.
Dr. Bandler, do you have a specific thought that you choose to think on purpose every day that makes you super happy, that you choose to think about yourself, about the world, about anything?
Yeah, I do. I get up every morning and I think to myself, I can make this a better place.
This is wonderful. So before we reach the end of this interview that I am so thankful for, I will ask you if there's one secret that you can tell me today, just the best secret that you can give me today.
Well, if I gave it to you, it wouldn't be a secret.
Only between you and me. So people can get this book on Amazon, and you can get it also at www.newthinkingpubs.com. Stay tuned because Dr. Bandler has so many things to teach us. Thank you so much for this interview.
It's a pleasure.